הבאות, ladies. ברוכות הנמצאות. It is so nice of you to come out. I heard that it's very cold out there. Is that true? Mm-hmm. Well, Baruch Hashem that you ventured out into this bad weather and that you came to hear Divrei Torah. Baruch Hashem, Ashrechem, Ashrechem. So just a couple of announcements that I have to make because we're on Torah Anytime, and also Hidabrut. No, we should get excited also about Torah Anytime that way, right? Yeah. Torah Anytime! Yay! Okay, we love Torah Anytime. But anyway, first of all, I just wanted to thank so many of the viewers that have been calling in with donations for our renovations. I am shocked. I've been shocked at the response that we've been getting. I mean, we are almost done with the raising funds of the renovations, primarily because of the viewers on Torah Anytime. So come on, wait. And we just have a few more $100 to collect and we're done. And we're done. So ladies out there, let's go. You can do it. Put a little power to it. Pick up the phone, call me. Make the donation or log on to www.ohelserah.com and you could press the donate button and donate through there. Thank you so much for reaching out to us and continue your good work. That's number one. Number two, this shiur is dedicated for the refuah shlema of a man in Las Vegas, Gidon Ben Esther, Sheva Refuah Shlema, Amen. Bimhera, and also for the Refuah Shlema of the young boy, David Ezra Ben Chavtziba, who's unfortunately lying in a coma in Eretz Yisrael, was in a horrible motorcycle accident. For the Refuah Shlema of a young 10-year-old boy, unfortunately, who's very sick and he needs a speedy and complete recovery. Andrew Ben Yunus, Sheva Refuah Shlema. Amen. And for the Tzlacha of Gidon Ben Esther's wife, who really needs chizuk now that her husband is in the hospital, Miriam Bat Ruchama. Amen. She should see Nisim v'Niflaot B'ezrat Hashem, and her husband should be well. Amen. Okay. One of the subjects that we encounter in this week's Parshat Beshalach, is the man that fell every day from Shamayim while the Jews traveled in the desert for 40 years. The Jews went out to collect it because this was their means of food. It provided physical and spiritual nourishment. Now, it tasted like anything that a person wanted it to taste like. And it was delivered to your doorstep if you were a tzaddik. But the most important aspect of the man was that it was our source of parnasah, our source of livelihood. And there are many lessons that we could learn from the man regarding parnasah. We know that parnasah is a matter that weighs on a person's mind all the time. We always wonder, how are we going to make a living? Where's the parnasah going to come from? It's undoubtedly one of the most stressful dilemmas in life. So first and foremost, Chachamim want us to know that making a living is a curse. It's a kelala. The Torah Kedusha tells us that after Adam HaRishon ate from the Etz Hadat, HaKadosh Baruch Hu cursed him that he would have to work the land in order to feed himself and his family. What does it say there in the Torah? Bezeh tapecha tochal lechem. With the sweat of your brow you will eat bread. That means that before Adam's chet, making a living was very easy. As a matter of fact, the Midrash says that Adam sat back while the Malachim roasted meat for him and gave him wine. We could maybe call Adam a Moroccan, I don't know. He ate meat and wine. They made wine for him, they pressed wine for him. Adam was living in Gan Eden like a king. He was free most of the day to involve himself in spiritual matters and spiritual pursuits. But as a result of the chet, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decreed that man would have to work for a living. The Gemara says, "Kashe parnasato shel adam ki kriyat yam suf." Making a living is as difficult as the splitting of the sea. Now, splitting of the sea is also in this week's parasha, interestingly. But what does it mean that work is as difficult as the splitting of the sea? The splitting of the sea wasn't so difficult. For Hashem, a miracle is easy. So why is the Gemara making a comparison between making a living and the splitting of the sea? So Chachamim teach us that when the Jews left Egypt and they arrived at the Yam Suf, they were sandwiched in between the sea on one side and the desert that was filled with snakes and scorpions on the other side. And the Jews were in a dilemma because behind them were the Egyptians also. Where was the Yeshua going to come from? That was the question. They were afraid. How are they going to get out of this dangerous situation? So some people said, well, let's go back to Egypt because there's no way out of this mess. Let's just surrender and wave the white flag. And some said, no, nothing doing. Let's fight the Egyptians. And others said, why don't we just settle in the desert and let HaKadosh Baruch Hu protect us from the snakes and the scorpions? But one thing is certain, ladies. No one expected the sea to split into 12 paths that each of the Shvatim could pass through. That definitely was not in the thoughts that popped into the mind of the people. Nobody there dreamt that the Yeshua would come because of the splitting of the sea. Think about it. But sure enough, when they least expected it, the sea split and the Jewish people passed through Bayabasha Betoch Hayam. And ultimately, the Egyptians drowned in those very waters. Ladies, the same is true concerning our parnasah. We proceed to our jobs every day and we make an effort to bring home the parnasah. But at the end of the day, we don't know exactly where the beracha is going to come from. We could put in all of our efforts into the production of one thing, and suddenly the beracha comes to us from somewhere else, from left field, bichlal, from a place we didn't even think about, from some side venture that we didn't put too much effort into. Therefore, the salvation in making a living sometimes comes from places that we did not expect or even realize that the source of the beracha was even an option. It's like Kriyat Yam Suf. When we least expected the beracha, boom, it suddenly appeared. That's parnasah. There's a story told concerning Rav Yitzchak Levi Berditchev alav shalom. He once saw a man running. And he says, where are you running to? And the man says, what do you mean where I'm running to make my parnasah? That's where I'm going. So the Berditchev Rebbe said, well, how do you know your livelihood is in front of you? Maybe it's behind you. And what the Rav was trying to say was that we don't know where the parnasah is. All Hashem asks us to do is to make our hishtadlut. Hashem wants us to be industrious and to try. But after that, it's up to us to have faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu that He's the one who's going to bring the parnasah. We have to remember that, and we have to know it. Remember that the Creator who created us has an obligation to sustain His creations in the same way that a father has an obligation to sustain his child. Does a child ever worry? Does a baby feel stress or anxiety over not knowing where his next bottle is going to come from? Of course not. A baby lies in his crib with complete confidence and faith that his parents are going to feed him. And it does happen that the parents come through and they feed the baby. The child understands that he's not capable of feeding himself. Therefore, it's the responsibility of the parents to provide for the baby. And the same is true concerning Parnasah. All HaKadosh Baruch Hu asks of us is to make ishtadlut, to make an effort. But at the end of the day, it's He who brings down the bracha of Parnasah. It's not our conscientious attitude that brings the Parnasah. That's what we learn from the man. How do we learn it from the man? How so? The Torah Kedosha tells us that the Jewish people had to collect the man every day. And no matter how much they collected, at the end of the day, it always came out to the portion that they were supposed to receive. That means that even if a person collected this heaping pile of man, by the time he brought it home, miraculously, the man turned out to be the same measure for each person in the family, not more and not less. The opposite was also true. If a person accidentally collected less, somehow by the time he got home, the bracha of the man multiplied, and that guy ended up with the amount that he was supposed to have. Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch Alav Shalom says, if that's the case, that the man was automatically balanced, and the bracha of the man was such that you couldn't take more and you couldn't take less, so why was it necessary to have to go out at all? Why make ishtadlut? A person could have simply gone out, just take a few small pieces of man, put it in your basket, go home, and just wait for the miracle to happen. And Hashem will make the calculations for you and bring you the appropriate measurement that you needed. Just take a handful of man, go back to your house, and wait for God to make the miracle, and He'll give it to you. Why didn't they do that? Rav Shimshon Raphael Hirsch explains that it couldn't happen that way because this was Hashem's way of telling us that He wants us to be hard-working people. Hashem wants you to make an effort. He doesn't want you to just sit at home and rely on nisim. Hashem says we have to make the proper hishtadlut, otherwise the beracha is not going to come down. So when it came to the man, we had to go through the motions. We had to fill up the basket, a little more, a little less, didn't matter. We had to try and come out with the right measurements. But at the end of the day, after we made all that hishtadlut, Hashem evened it out accordingly. You with me? Yes? No? Maybe so?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to talk about success. We're talking about Parnasah. Let's talk about success. Everybody in the world wants success. Most people's goal in life is to become successful. Whether it's social success, intellectual success, financial success, and like everything else in the world, success can only come from Borei Olam. Hatzlacha comes from Hashem. The question is, how do I arrive at the proper balance of having emunah in Hashem, that He'll grant me hatzlacha, the success, together with making my hishtadlut? You hear the question? You understand the question? How do I balance those two out? Meaning, why do I have to make an effort at all? If at the end of the day Hashem is providing my parnasah and He's sustaining me, what's the purpose of me going out to work? Emunah versus hishtadlut. You understand? Why can't I simply stay at home, put my feet up, relax, and have complete emunah in Hashem and wait for the money to appear in my mailbox? By the way, sometimes it taka happens. No, it really does. But anyway, it does happen to me at times where I do work during the day, and sometimes I get this stirring feeling, I don't want to go to work today. Today I want to write a shiur. Remember, it happens to me. And I say, I'm not going. And then I said, but if I don't go, where's the parnasah going to come from? I know where it's going to come from. From the bracha of Hashem that because I had an unah in him that I wanted to write a shiur, he's going to send me something. That's what happened when those ladies came on that Motzei Shabbat and bought like $350 worth of kisui rosh, when on Friday I didn't go to work. And I wrote a shiur. I said, I'm not going to work today, I'm writing a shiur. And all of a sudden, on Motzei Shabbat, wow, I mean, I couldn't believe it. I mean, they left and I was dancing. I didn't want to dance in front of them. I don't want them to think that I'm happy they're leaving. But can Hashem just perform a miracle for me? For you? Why does Hashem want us to work? Why does the Kadosh Baruch Hu want us to exert ourselves when it comes to making a living? So there are a few reasons. First of all, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is testing us. He's testing us in the world of business, and that He wants to see how loyal we're going to remain to Him. You see, every step that we take during our business ventures, no matter what industry we're in, whether we're salespeople, professionals, farmers, bakers, secretaries, no matter where we're making our living, at every moment there are questions in halakha of what's mutar and what's asur. There are halachot concerning purchases and concerning selling. If you're a store owner, everything is regulated and restricted by a particular halakha and a mitzvah. Therefore, Hashem wants us to go out into the work arena because it's there that we're going to be able to prove our loyalty to Him. He wants us to show Him how faithful we are to Him. So the business world is a great opportunity for a Jew to show his commitment to the mitzvot. How so? Well, is a person going to steal? Or is he going to compromise? Is he going to lie and cheat? Is he going to overcharge his customers? Is he going to be nice when he interacts with them? Like, is he going to do a chesed every once in a while? The world of business is a fertile ground for a person to keep a multitude of mitzvot on a daily basis. For example, are you going to daven in the morning like a mensch? Or do you think it's more important to run to the office and then pray? So because parnasah causes you to make such a concerted effort, it puts you on a playing field where you're challenged with many opportunities to serve the Borei Olam. That's why, by the way, plants don't have to make an effort to live. If you're going to go to your backyard, you'll notice that your plant is just standing there like a tree. A tree stands there with no real hishtadlut, and it lives just fine. It receives a little water from the shamayim, a little sunlight almost every day, and it grows with no effort. It hangs out all day long. That's what it does. So seemingly, a tree has a great life. Even an animal doesn't work from 9 to 5. Of course, they have to find their food. But how long does that take? They find their food, they eat it, and then they have the rest of the day off. Animals roam around the jungle feeling free. They're on vacation every single day for the majority of the day. And some of us might think, that's not fair. A monkey has it better than me. He's swinging from branch to branch, from tree to tree, with a banana in his hand, a kol tov, he knows he's eating. He doesn't have to worry where his food's going to come from. Hashem provides for him the bananas. Why did HaKadosh Baruch Hu give the animals and the plants an easy pass, while we, who are human beings, and we're the primary creation, we have to work so hard? The answer is because animals don't have mitzvot. They don't have averot either. An animal doesn't have a share in olam haba. Monkeys don't daven shacharit. If they do, it's a special monkey. One lady, only the Israelis could do this. One lady, in one of the shiurim, I said, Ma, monkeys, I said, monkeys don't daven shacharit. She says, my monkey does. My monkey is daven shacharit. She meant the husband. Miskena malasot. Only the Israelis that should watch my Shalom Bayit classes. You shouldn't call your husband a monkey. Anyway, so Hashem doesn't have to pose them the challenge of making a living because there's nothing for them to prove. They're monkeys. But a human being who is granted mitzvot is given the task of going out to work in order to be able to make choices during those work hours. The human being is constantly trying to prove himself to the Ribono Shel Olam. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu creates a situation where we're going to be challenged. How honest are we going to be? How generous are we going to be? So the first reason we have to work is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is testing us. And we learn that idea of Hashem testing us from the man. Now how do we see it? Because the Pasuk says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us the man, Lema'an anasenu. That's an interesting lashon. Means in order to test us, Hayelech betorati imlo. Are we going to go in Hashem's ways or not? Well, that's very interesting. But what's the test over here? The man fell from the heaven, Bechlal, and it tasted like whatever food you wanted it to taste like. As a matter of fact, Chachamim tell us that the man digested itself in our system, so there was no waste. Could you imagine? Could you imagine not having to relieve yourself for 40 years? So what's the test? What's the test there with the man? Rashi HaKadosh Alav HaShalom explains that the test was the man itself. Because there were halachot that came with receiving the man. For example, we weren't allowed to leave over any man for the next day. And we weren't allowed to go out on Shabbat to collect the man. So there were halachot, there were laws concerning the man, and that was the test, the man itself. Are we going to follow the laws of the livelihood called man or not? Okay. Now, the reason why we're required to go out and earn parnasah is in order to pass the test of whether we earn the parnasah honestly or not. Are we going to earn our living at the expense of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's mitzvot, or are we going to put the mitzvot first? Therefore, we have to know, especially those who are out there in the work arena, that you're being tested. And that's precisely why you're there in the workplace to begin with. That's reason number one. The second reason we go to work, and why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the concept of hishtadlut, as opposed to just sitting at home all day long and relying on Him, is because of the following. Imagine what the world would look like if everybody in the world had all this free time on their hands. Imagine waking up in the morning with nowhere to go every single day. There's a paycheck in the mailbox that arrives in the morning, and the only errand you have is to go to the bank and cash the check. That is the only errand every single day. Cash the paycheck, which if you do, wonderful, you could use it, but you didn't even earn it. You didn't earn it rightfully, but that's all you have to do. And now after you cash the check, you have 12 hours to yourself where you could do whatever you want. 12 hours. And that's for those who go to sleep early. If you go to sleep like at 1 in the morning, you've got 16 hours of free time. Imagine if the entire world was just hanging out. What type of bedlam would this create in the world? What type of mischief? What type of trouble? Imagine the crimes that would be wrought in the world as a result of this. Because when people have a lot of time on their hands and a little bit of money in their pockets, it could chas v'shalom lead to bad behavior as a result of the boredom that they feel. Therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to go to work to earn our livelihood, even though He could provide us with parnasah without us putting too much effort into it. But Hashem does a chesed with us, and He says, you know what? To keep you out of trouble, in order to keep you busy, I'll make it a little bit difficult for you. I'll make it difficult. What are you going to do? You're going to wake up at 6 in the morning and you're going to get dressed. Then you're going to daven. You're going to walk to the train, or you're going to walk to your car and drive to work. You're going to have to work a full day, and work is going to be a little stressful. Then you're going to get back on the train or back into your car at the end of the day. During rush hour, you'll travel back to your house, and when you get home, it'll be late. And you'll be so exhausted, you'll hardly be able to move. So you're going to retire on the couch, poop, I'm out, and your friend's going to call you. And she's going to say, hey, you feel like going out and doing some averot? And you're going to say, oh, I wish I could go with you to make some averot. I really do wish, but I'm just too tired. Believe me, I want to go out there with you, but I'm pooped. I've been up since 6 a.m. I don't have the strength to even eat my dinner. Not to mention the fact that I have to wake up early again tomorrow. So, no, can't do. I can't go with you to make the averot. Get the drift? In other words, if you had all the time in the world, averot become quite easy to transgress. Therefore, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives us the ability to go to work in order to keep us loyal to Him and to ourselves. He exhausts us and He keeps us working so that the Yetzer Hara won't have the ability to control us ultimately. That's what the Mishnah says, by the way. Yafeh Talmud Torah im derech eretz. It's a good combination between learning and working. Before a man goes to work, he goes to shul. He learns a little. He davens, goes to work, comes home. Hopefully you made a good supper for him and not a cheese sandwich. He learns a little more, and then he goes to sleep. That setup is perfect. The Mishnah says that this combination is the most productive. Talmud Torah in Derech Eretz. Those two are the best. Why? Listen to what the Mishnah says. Sheyegiat shnehem meshakachat avon. Because between the learning and the working, a man doesn't have time to sin. Either you're at work or you're at a shiur. There's no time for shtuyot. But if you had time off, you'd start to get into trouble. The Sforno Alav Shalom explains that was the test of the man. That was it. Because the man fell down from the Shamayim. So the Jews in the desert, they had a lot of time on their hands. We didn't have to work for 8 hours a day in order to bring our parnasah. So the test of the man was the question of, what was the Jew going to do with all this spare time now? What, is he going to play tennis in the midbar? Is he going to sit and play cards in his tent? Is he going to play backgammon outside? Is he going to do averot? The Jews were now faced with this dilemma. They're not going to the bathroom. Their clothing, right, because they didn't have to relieve themselves, so there goes that. Their clothing grew with them, so there was no washing or anything like that either. They don't have to go out to make a living because the living is coming to them. What should we do all day long? They could get into trouble. There was no working long hours. But with the man, it was like winning the lottery. After eating breakfast, the question was, oh, what am I going to do now the rest of the day after I just ate? Am I going to waste my time or am I going to do something productive? And if we look at the beginning of the parasha, we see a similar idea. When the Jews were coming out of Egypt, there were 2 mitzvot that they were commanded to do. One mitzvah was to take back their money from the Egyptians. The second mitzvah was to take the bones of Yosef HaTzadik with them out of Egypt. Both mitzvot were important. The question is, which of these 2 mitzvot did the Jews choose? Most people think they went to collect the bone. If they didn't know what was going on in the parasha, if they didn't learn it, most people would say the Jewish people, by the time they had to leave Mitzrayim, they were on a very exalted level. They went to collect the bones of Moshe, of course. Chachamim tell us absolutely not. They chose the money. They went for the money. They went into the homes of the Egyptian neighbors, took all their possessions back, and they were happy that it was considered a mitzvah. Every penny they put in their pockets was a mitzvah aseh of taking their money. So, who took the bones of Yosef HaTzadik? Moshe Rabbeinu, that's who. The pasuk says, "Vayikach Moshe et atzmot Yosef imo." And the Rabbanim ask, why did Moshe choose this mitzvah? Why did he take it upon himself to retrieve the bones of Yosef? Ladies, Moshe Rabbeinu thought to himself the following. Yeah, it's a mitzvah to take the money, but we can't take the money with us after we leave this world. Money is a temporary item. No matter how wealthy you are, you cannot be buried with it. And even if you were buried with it, it wouldn't serve you any purpose in the kever, in the grave. As a matter of fact, there's a story about a man who wanted to be buried with all his wealth. He had millions of dollars, and he said to the rabbi, "Rabbi, at my burial, I am putting you in charge. I want you to unlock all my vaults and put all my money in my coffin." The rabbi said, "My pleasure, no problem, I'll do that for you." So the Talmidim of this rabbi couldn't believe it. They went to the rabbi, they said, "Rabbi, what are you doing? It's a crazy thing that you're doing. You're not allowed to do that." The rabbi didn't answer. He says, that when the man finally died, they all went to the cemetery, and now they're digging the grave. The rabbi has all the millions of dollars in cash with him, and just as they're about to close the grave, the rabbi says, "Wait! The man requested that all his money should be buried with him." What does the rabbi do? He takes out his checkbook, writes him a check for $1 million, throws the check in the kever, and takes the cash. Of course, this is a joke. But you see over here that you can't take money with you after 120 years. The only thing you could take with you is the mitzvot. At the end of the day, Moshe Rabbeinu knew that if you had a choice between two mitzvot, you choose the mitzvah that's going to have benefits for eternity. The money is just going to benefit you maybe for 120 years max, and that's in that generation. In this generation, if you live to be 50, we see already what's happening, the tragedies. It's a ness. But the mitzvah of taking Yosef's bones out of Egypt, such a mitzvah is deposited in the bank of Hashem in Shamayim. That's a real gain. And all the money that the Jews took from the Egyptians, where's that money today? Where is it? Hasta la vista, you know what that means? It's gone. They're not using it. But Moshe Rabbeinu is still benefiting in Shamayim from that mitzvah that he took when he left Egypt. That's the priority when it comes to mitzvot. The Chafetz Chaim, alav shalom, gives us a mashal. He says there was a poor man who needed to make a living for himself, and he heard that in a far-off island, there's a lot of money to be made on that island. So he goes to the dock, gets on the boat, and he's informed by the captain that the boat only sails there and back once a year. So he's going to have to spend the whole year on the island. But the man needs parnasah, so he agrees. He says goodbye to his family for a year. Now he arrives on the island, and he cannot believe what he sees. There are diamonds in the middle of the street. Big diamonds, little diamonds, mediocre diamonds, everywhere. And nobody's grabbing them. So he goes nuts. And he starts to load his pockets with diamonds. And the people are looking at him and they're thinking, well, what is this guy doing, this mishuga? So he says, are these real? Are these diamonds real? And sure enough, they were real. And he can't believe, he wants to know, why isn't anybody taking these diamonds? And he finds out that on that island, diamonds are not worth very much. You can have all the diamonds in your pocket, but on that island, they don't measure wealth with diamonds. So the man is very sad, and he proceeds to start emptying out his pockets from all the diamonds. And so he asks them, he says, so how is wealth measured here on this island? Am I going to make parnasah here? So they tell him, look, wealth on this island is from animal fat. And they show him a guy on the island who has a warehouse of animal fat. And if he wants, he could try to get a job by him. So for a year, he's making deals, and he's buying, and he's selling, and trading, and he becomes the greatest animal fat provider on the entire island. The man was controlling the fat market single-handedly. He had such honor, such prestige, and he managed to acquire a warehouse of animal fat. A year later, the boat pulls into the dock, and it's time to go home. And the man is now trying to figure out how he's going to transport all of this wealth, all this animal fat. He's got to take it back home, and he's so excited. He can't wait for his wife to see him and be proud of his accomplishments. Sure enough, he figures out a way to transport the animal fat on the boat, and after sailing for quite a number of months, they pull into the dock of his hometown. His wife and children are standing at the dock. Baruch haba, Bali. You should all greet your husbands that way when they come back. Then again, what said this story? A lady said, if you would go away for a year, I would greet him that way. But my last thought that he comes back every day. But anyway, that's not the point. Baruch haba, Bali, besiman tov. What's that smell? It smells bad over here, she says. And he says, wait till you see. Comes with the boat, opens up all the boxes. What do they see? They see boxes and boxes of animal fat. And they look at him like he's crazy. Suddenly it dawns on him that where he comes from, meaning here, fat is fat. It has no value. And his wife tells him, what a tipesh. You had an opportunity to collect diamonds and you blew it. If you would have just brought just a handful of diamonds, we could have been rich for generations. Instead, you brought back animal fat. Tipesh. The man was obviously very distraught. He went home feeling very, very sad. And he was so tired from his journey that he fell asleep. So his wife started to go through the pocket. She wanted to do laundry. She's still wanting to do laundry for him. I don't know what I would do. I would put him back on the next boat back to the island. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, he was so, I'm just kidding, by the way. He was so tired from his journey. Fell asleep. Meanwhile, she's going through his pockets. She's got to do laundry. And lo and behold, she finds 5 diamonds that happened to be in, I guess he had a little hole and it stayed there in his pocket from the first day that he arrived on the island. All this time he forgot it was Bechal in his pocket. And from those 5 diamonds, they were able to live like royalty. But the point is that Chachamim say this guy missed his calling. The Chafetz Chaim said, we come into this world and we get sidetracked. Our animal fat, says the Chafetz Chaim, is called money. I'm not saying you're not allowed to make money. And any rabbi that's going to tell you that money is no good, just tell him the following. Just say, okay, rabbi, then give me all your money. I don't want you to have averah. If you think money is so bad, I'll take your salary. Don't worry. Let's see what he tells you. But anyway, of course you have to make a living and you have to make money in order to live. But when we go to Olam Haba and we're going to show them our bank accounts and our vaults, When we stand in front of a Kadosh Baruch Hu with stacks of hundreds trying to show it off, you know what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to tell us? Animal fat! Are you kidding me? He's not going to say that. I'm saying that, but you could imagine. He's going to tell you, this is what you did all your life. You were collecting dollar bills? Where did this get you? There were diamonds in the street. There were mitzvot to be collected. You could have put on tzitzit and received the reward for every second that you wore it. You could have been more tznuah. You could have been more careful with taharat mishpacha, with kashrut, Talmud Torah, shmirat lashon. All these mitzvot are priceless and they're very easy to acquire. You could have picked up diamonds. Each one is worth an eternity. And you're coming to me with $100 bill? You're coming and you're showing me your credit card, your American Express? Don't leave home without it? You're coming to me with plastic? There were diamonds in the streets, says the Chafetz Chaim. And Moshe Rabbeinu knew this. So he didn't get sidetracked. He took the bones of Yosef with him to eternity. So of course, there's a priority where you have to choose the appropriate mitzvot. That's the lesson, not to lose your focus when it concerns your parnasah. So let's review. So far we mentioned 2 reasons that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to work. First, it's a test to see how faithful you're going to be in the work arena. Not like the animals, that they don't have this nisayon, they don't have reward. Secondly, it's to exhaust you so that you don't have time to sin. And the third reason why we go to work, according to Rav Dessler, alav shalom, is because Hashem doesn't make open miracles. If we wouldn't make any effort in the work arena and simply receive our nourishment, that would be a nes galui, that would be an open miracle. Imagine a man sitting down and all of a sudden a piece of gold falls down his chimney without him doing a thing. You look at this and you think, nes gadol hayasham. Ladies, this guy did nothing. He sat at home and poof, he became a millionaire. It would be an open miracle, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu does not do open miracles. Even when HaKadosh Baruch Hu split the Yam Suf, it's written that the night before it was very, very windy. There was an easterly wind that blew the entire night. So when the sea finally split, what did Pa'ah say? He says, it's a natural phenomenon. The wind split the sea. It's just the wind. Even if you want to say it's the wind can't split the water into 12 marble highways. The wind can't keep the sharks in the walls of the 12 paths, right? The wind cannot cause trees, apple trees and fruit trees to grow out of the water, right? But the point is that Hashem conceals the miracles, and He doesn't always want you to necessarily see it bagalui. He doesn't perform open miracles that often. So by going to work, you're technically covering up the miracle. So now the $1 million question before we leave is, how much effort are you supposed to have when it concerns going out to make a living? I mean, the Chafetz Chaim used to open his store a half hour a day. He used to make a couple of sales, half hour, and after that he closed the store, go home, and learn the rest of the day. So is that it? Is the magic number a half hour a day? Is it an hour a day that we're supposed to apply ourselves to work? 5 hours? 8 hours? 10 hours? Is it nights and weekends? How much effort? What do you think?
I don't know.
8 hours a day?
Yeah.
Do you think 8 hours a day? You?
As much effort as a person believes.
As much effort as a person believes, meaning?
You believe that you can, you only need to work 2 hours for your parnasa, and Hashem will take care of the rest.
Chaya?
Oh, it's necessary.
As much as necessary?
No, how much the amount is necessary to gain a living.
As much as you need to make a living. Let me tell you the answer. The answer is that the goal is to come to such a strong level of emunah that you don't have to put too much effort into it, like the Chafetz Chaim. That's the goal. Again, because work is a curse. It's like a parking ticket. Nobody ever pays more than they have to the New York City Finance Department, right? You don't get a $25, actually a $35 parking ticket now. You don't say, oh, this city really needs money. Let me send them my maaser, right? You don't do that. You don't send the Department of Finance a $50 bill and say to them, I owe you $35, but keep the change, you miskenim, you. Most of us have a hard time paying the $35, right? Work is the same in the sense that nobody wants to do more than they have to. Nobody wants to pay more taxes than they have to. The real answer to the question of how much effort a person should make in the work arena, and again, this is a question that most people grapple with, emunah versus ishtadlut. How much time do I have to put into a work week which is considered enough ishtadlut together with what I consider to be emunah? How do I balance that out? There's no real answer. It's an individualized thing. It's not like you could tell a person, the magic number is 6 hours, 42 minutes, and 6 seconds. The more bitachon a person has in Hashem, the less effort he's going to need to make. That's basically the rule of thumb. So based on what we're learning, let me tell you about a Jewish king called Chizkiah, alav shalom. During Chizkiah Melech's reign, what did he do? He sent the doors of the Bet HaMikdash to the king of Aram as a bribe so that he shouldn't attack the Jewish people. And the bribe worked. There was no war. But the Navi of that generation had a claim against Chizkiah. His claim was the following. Chizkiah, you didn't need to do that. You should have had more emunah in Hashem. You give away the doors of the Bet HaMikdash to a goy? And Chachamim ask, what do you mean you should have had more emunah? He's the king. He's responsible for the protection and welfare of the Jewish people. Isn't he supposed to strategize? Isn't he supposed to try every move in order to protect the Jewish people? Should the king just sit back while the enemy is coming with their swords and do nothing? That would be reckless. If you know something dangerous is supposed to happen, do you rely on bitachon? Chizkiah Melech felt that in order to ensure the safety of the Jewish people, he had to send such a bribe to the king of Aram. The doors were the only thing that were going to satisfy this guy. What's wrong with that? He's protecting the people. We see from here, by the way, that the Torah lets us exert a certain amount of effort even though we have emunah. That's the way Hashem wanted it. So if that's the way Hashem wanted it, why is there a claim against Chizkiah? And the answer is that Chachamim give us because he was Chizkiah HaMelech. He wasn't a regular guy. He was the man that was responsible for the Torah learning of his generation that was like no other generation before besides the generation of the Midbar. During his time, every child was fluent in the laws of Torah and Tahara. Every child was an expert in the most complicated laws in the Torah. And that's because Chizkiah Melech put great emphasis on Torah education. That's, by the way, the same Chizkiah that when he was being attacked by Sancheriv and his army of 180,000 soldiers, what did he do? He had such emunah and bitachon, he told his army to go to sleep and that everything's going to be okay. And then he davened to Hashem for help. And he says, Hashem, please, I told them to go to sleep. I just want them to sleep and to wake up in the morning and the army should be dead. He told his soldiers, go to sleep. And Bemet, the next morning, all 180,000 soldiers of Cherev were dead. They died in their sleep. So Hashem says, Chizkiah, you exhibited such emunah during the war with Sancheriv. You had such bitachon that you told your soldiers to go to sleep, knowing that there were 180,000 soldiers waiting to attack you. So a man with such bitachon, for him, that much effort that you exhibited now with the king of Aram, that's not necessary. You didn't have to bribe the king of Aram. It's not necessary for you. Such a man that could go to sleep and have bitachon that Hashem's going to take care of 180,000 enemies, you don't need to send the doors. We see from here that Parnasah and Nisim are connected. It depends on who you are and how much real emunah you have in Hashem. It's relative. When Bnei Yisrael arrived at the Yam Suf, they didn't know what to do. We said they were sandwiched in between the Egyptians and the sea. They didn't know how they were going to die. Am I going to die by being trampled upon by the Egyptian chariots? Or are we going to die by drowning in the ocean because there's nowhere to go? So they were frightened. Were they allowed to be scared? Yes or no? You say no? Because?
Because they just saw all the miracles in Mitzrayim, especially...
Okay, that's a good point.
They believe that Hashem will save them.
Okay, that's also a good point. Anyone else?
It makes sense though that the Bnei Yisrael were like that, because they're leaving all of a sudden, even though they're leaving with wealth, they're leaving all of a sudden, they have no idea where they're going to. All of a sudden they're told, okay, go into the water, it will split. Like, even though they had all the makos that happened to them, but everything is so like that, everything by Tzis and Srayim was quote unquote haphazard. It was like so quick, everything that like.
So you're saying they did have the right to be nervous and afraid?
I can understand why they were nervous.
As we can understand. We would say, of course they're allowed to be scared. It's only normal. You've got 900 chariots coming after you. You've got the sea in front of you, the desert on your right, all the other enemies on your left. But what does Moshe Rabbeinu tell the people? He says, Al tirau. Don't be scared. Now here's the clincher, ladies. When we say, were they allowed to be scared? Well, it depends when. Moshe Rabbeinu says, Al tirau, don't be scared. That means that after Moshe Rabbeinu said, don't be scared, everything's going to be okay. If a Jew was scared after that, it was considered an avera. Not before. Yes, but what are they going to do now? They should sing and dance? They thought there was no way out of this dilemma. Imagine you're sitting on a plane and the wings just fell off. Bloop. Suddenly, Eliyahu HaNavi appears before you and he says to you, don't be scared. And you say, oh, it's very easy for you to say don't be scared because you're Eliyahu HaNavi. What? You expect me not to be afraid in such a situation? And the Mefarshim explain it this way. If Hashem guarantees you that you're going to be okay, you're not allowed to be afraid. Moshe Rabbeinu was telling the Jewish people, the Navi of the generation was telling the Jewish people, listen, I just spoke to God. And there's nothing to worry about. We're going to get out of this dilemma. Ladies, if there's a commandment from Hashem not to be scared, even if you're a hair's breadth away from danger, if you have a guarantee from the Ribono Shel Olam, you're going to be all right. You're not allowed to get scared. If the Rav tells you don't be scared, you're not scared. If the Navi tells you don't be scared, you're not supposed to be scared. If Mashiach comes and he tells you don't be scared, Al Tira, you're not allowed to be scared. But the problem is that in our generation, we don't have guarantees from Hashem like we used to. So that's where your bitachon has to kick in. So I want to end with this thought. The students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Alav Shalom asked him, why did Hashem have to give the man every single day? Why couldn't he just give it once a year? Just give it to them one lump sum, like the lottery. So Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai answered with a mashal. He said, there was a king who had 2 sons. One son he gave a yearly allowance to, but he barely saw that son. Once a year the son would come and pick up his check. The other son came once a week to the palace to receive his allowance. That son became close to his father, and the father was close to his son. The king did this on purpose in order that the second son should need him. So if Hashem would have given the man once a year, what would have happened? We would visit Hashem once a year just to collect our annual check. So Hashem said, no. Take some for today, but you're not going to know what's going to be with you tomorrow. In this way, we're going to have to come back to Hashem and ask Him for food every day. And that's going to create a relationship, and it's going to form a bond between us and Hashem. So in truth, the curse that Hashem gave of having to go to work is actually a beracha. It's a beracha. Because now, every single day, you have to daven to Hashem to provide you with parnasah. And He provides you a little bit every single day. But you don't know what's going to happen in a week from now, in 2 weeks from now, in a month from now. So what do you have to do? You have to keep davening to Hashem. And then Hashem holds it back a little bit or gives you a little nisayon. And sometimes He gives it to you in increments. Why does He do that? In order to make you closer to Him. So you could reach out to Him and talk to Him. Now you understand the curse of the Nachash in Gan Eden. Hashem tells the Nachash, because you seduced Chava into eating from the tree, ve'afar ha'adama tochal kol yemei chayecha, you're going to eat the dust of the earth all the days of your life. Well, what is this curse exactly? Ladies, the snake will never starve. Wherever he goes, there's dirt. There's no shortage of afar. When human beings have to search high and low for $1, the snake has his parnasah in front of him no matter where he is. And Chachamim explained that that was the biggest curse. Because Hashem was telling the Nachash, I don't want to know from you. I don't want to hear from you. Here's all your food. Take all the dirt in one lump sum for generations to come until Mashiach comes. Take all the dirt. Just go away. Don't bother me. Don't ask me anything. I don't want to have anything to do with you. What a big curse this was, ladies. Because the snake lost his ability to communicate with God. Talk to Hashem. But with Adam, Hashem cursed him by telling him that he's going to have to go out and make a living, and it's going to be difficult for him on purpose, because Hashem wants Adam to daven to Him. Hashem wants us to ask Him for things. He wants us to talk to Him. And as a result of talking to Him, He's going to be closer to us, and then He's going to be able to give us berachot. So the curse of the Nachash, that was really a curse. But the curse of Adam was really a blessing. And that's the lesson of Parnasah. We have to remember that the diamonds are the priority. The animal fat, that's just secondary. So work is the place where we can show our loyalty to Hashem. And as we climb up the ladder of bitachon, we're going to be able to devote less time to work and more time to ruchaniut. And when HaKadosh Baruch Hu will send the Mashiach, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll be able to go back to the times of Gan Eden, where there was no work at all. We'll be able to spend more time pursuing spiritual matters like Adam HaRishon did. And our physical means are going to be provided for without worries. The Gemara says that our work is going to be done by the hands of other people. We won't need to work anymore. They're going to work for us. Other people are going to work for us. We're going to live in a perfect world the way it was meant to be back in Gan Eden. But in the meantime, Hashem should bless us. That we should have Parnasa Tova Beshefa. Parnasa ברevach ולא בצמצום. בהיתר ולא באיסור. בנחת ולא בצער. אמן כן. יהי רצון.